Hey, it's Jordan. Delighted to be joined by William Walter, who is one of, I believe, 800 Bernie Sanders delegates to the DNC convention that have voted against the platform of the Democratic Party, which, if you've read the platform, is a big bowl of neoliberalism, incrementalism, and empty platitudes. So, William, first, I wanted to bring up for attention what I think is pretty clear. You, the other delegates, were doing a campaign today to draw attention to the fact that hundreds of Bernie delegates would be voting no against the platform. And then Biden named his VP, Kamala Harris. What do you think? Do you think they kind of saw this coming? They didn't want it to become a big news story, keep the facade of party unity out there, so they put the announcement out on the same day you and Bernie delegates were going to, I don't know if you were voting no today or just were organizing to do that. Yeah.
So what we did was, and this has now been planned for a week or two, was in order to show solidarity with each other that we are not happy with a platform that doesn't include strong language setting the table towards a single payer system. So we were going to submit all of our votes at the same time, which would have been 3 p.m. Eastern today, as well as posting videos on Twitter under the hashtag Draw the Line in Medicare for All now. The point being that we, the delegates, are drawing a line in the sand. Medicare for All is the deal breaker. We're in the midst of a global pandemic, the likes of which hasn't been seen in our lifetimes. You would think that if there's a time now, or if there's a time ever to implement something like this, now would be a great time to do it. And the platform couldn't even throw us a bone. It's not binding, so I don't understand why they couldn't have included even some kind of language that shows that we could work towards a system like this. But it is what it is, and we were very disappointed to see that. So a number of us decided to vote no. We assumed that it would pass anyways. Our goal wasn't even to have it fail necessarily, because it was expected that wouldn't. We just more wanted to make the message clear that when 88% of Democratic voters support Medicare for All, and the survey that was taken amongst Democratic delegates had that number at 75%, so the voting population is even higher. But 3 out of 4 delegates said they were for Medicare for All, and it still wasn't put into the platform, which was incredibly disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't mean this by disrespect, but I always say, Democratic platform, it's just a piece of paper. Even if they put Medicare for All in there, Joe Biden would throw it into the White House bonfire. It's not binding, like you said. But I think what is telling is the fact that during a global deadly pandemic, where, frankly, other countries that do have universal health care have fared better than us because people don't hesitate to go to the doctor for fear of going bankrupt. Even during this deadly pandemic, you have over 50 million people have filed for unemployment. We don't have the exact number, but I would guess at least tens of millions are without health care right now. He hasn't budged at all. I mean, if you consider budging lowering the age of Medicare to 60, what does that say to you and other delegates that despite a clearly different picture, he's still sticking to this for-profit healthcare system?
It tells you something that a lot of the delegates already knew, that the party doesn't necessarily represent its constituents. This is not news to a lot of people. I know a very large percentage of young progressives who are of the mindset that the parties are two sides of the same coin. Republicans and Republican lights, if you will, the diet Republicans. So it's I can't say that I'm surprised. I really can't. It is incredibly disappointing, as I mentioned, because you would think such a popular policy would, especially in the middle of a pandemic. It's 2020. The rest of the world has shown us that you can mitigate the spread of this virus if you effectively mask, social distance, go to the doctor when you're sick, all things that Americans just don't want to do. We have a weird mindset in America. I don't know if it's American exceptionalism or what, but our independent freedoms seem to supersede the collective health of society. And when people are more looking out for themselves than looking out for others, you end up in a situation like this. I know a lot of countries a lot of Asian countries in particular, when you know the flu might be going around, or cold season or something, people voluntarily wear masks because it's kind of culturally ingrained that you're looking out for your fellow citizens. And America we just don't do that. It's sad.
And let me ask you, because obviously the delegate, what you were planning on doing today got upstaged by Kamala Harris. But obviously, if 800 delegates are basically organizing to say hell no to the Democratic Party platform, they're not happy. So as best as you can you kind of take the temperature of the Bernie supporters you've spoken with, that are delegates? What are their plans? Do they feel like, to hell with it? We obviously Biden doesn't represent us. Obviously Kamala Harris doesn't represent us, but we're going to hold our nose and vote anyway? Or are they just, like a lot of progressives, just at the point where we just can't bring ourselves to continually voting for this lesser of two evils? Because if we keep doing that, we don't have any leverage to demand anything.
That's exactly it. That last point is what I've heard more than anything else. The last point you mentioned is kind of the big one. Is accepting the lesser of two evils over and over and over again actually going to lead to change? A lot of progressive that I've spoken with, we kind of bit the bullet in 2016. We voted for Hillary Clinton despite a campaign that was questionably advantageous from a systems perspective, giving the Hillary Clinton campaign little help here and there that kind of added up. And a lot of the delegates obviously were rubbed the wrong way by that, and a lot of them still sucked it up and voted for her because we knew the train wreck that would be Donald Trump. We were told, well, this election you can't do it. We have to get rid of Donald Trump, just like in 2004. Well, we can't do it this year. We got to get rid of George W. Bush. You keep pushing that every year further and further. Eventually, people are going to be like, I've heard this story before. This is a tale you keep seeming to tell us, and we don't seem to be making any progress. So what I personally would say is votes have to be earned, not given. With that being said, Donald Trump cannot earn my vote. Joe Biden could earn my vote, but he doesn't seem to be interested in it at this point. There's a lot of popular policies, two in particular, being Medicare for all and the legalization of marijuana, that seem like in 2020 it should be a no-brainer. You see how much money some of these states that have legalization are making, especially in the movement that we're currently going through with police brutality and the over-violence and kind of systemic oppression that minorities face from police. You would think that something as simple as at least decriminalizing marijuana would be considered, but the Biden campaign seems to differ. Now, when you keep telling someone to vote for the lesser of two evils because they have no other option, the Overton window kind of keeps shifting further and further and further right. So you get to a point where someone like Joe Biden is the left candidate. I believe it was AOC who said, Joe Biden and I ideologically should not really be in the same party. We are so different that it's kind of weird to have such a wide-ranging party, but as the American system pushes further and further right, it leaves a lot more space on that left side compared to the right wing, which seems to be getting more and more concentrated in their more extreme beliefs, to put it that way.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, because I think it's interesting. I remember in 2016 when I saw CNN, the media, I think they overestimated how many Bernie supporters were going to vote for Joe Biden. They've pushed, Hillary Clinton. They pushed the narrative that that's why she lost. That's not why she lost. More Bernie supporters voted for her than Hillary supporters voted for Obama in 2008.
And more people voted for who was the Libertarian candidate?
Gary Johnson.
More people voted for Gary Johnson that would have been Trump voters than Jill Stein voters who would have voted for Hillary Clinton. So, because another one that I hear, obviously everybody always wants to blame the Bernie bros, but I hear a lot of blaming of the third party vote. If you cut out both of those third party candidates, it would have helped the Republicans even more. So like you said, that's a very unfair comparison.
But I guess why I brought that up is, actions speak louder than words. He just chose Kamala Harris, so obviously their calculus is we have a better chance courting moderate Republicans and Lincoln Project folks than progressives, or we just don't care to cater to progressives. So with Kamala Harris on board, I mean, CNN, I'm seeing, somehow thinks this is attractive to young people. You seem fairly young. Is this what puts Biden over the edge for Bernie Sanders supporters? Because, I mean, I think it's great that a black woman's on the ticket, but this is somebody who, moonwalked away from Medicare for All in less than 24 hours. She supported it when she was on CNN's town hall, and then the donors, gave her a talking to, and she backed.
Couple of those ear whispers can change opinions real quickly.
So this is someone without core convictions that I could see, and obviously you're not black, but in terms of criminal justice reform or defund the police, I would not think this is the right person, the right messenger for this moment.
Mm-hmm. I can't disagree with that. In the middle of the largest protest movement in American history, that especially that focuses on the over-policing and the brutality that we've been seeing across the country from some American police forces, it does seem quite questionable. A lot of what I've heard is it really comes back to the whole lesser of two evils mindset. A lot of people that are, we'll say, happy or acceptable, Kamala is acceptable to them, it's because there were worse choices that were being considered. Now, myself personally, I would have absolutely loved to see someone like Nina Turner. Obviously, that would never happen. But if the party was interested in reaching out to their progressive base, it would have been very easy to pick a ticket with someone as popular as Nina. Now, with the kind of, I think it's pretty obvious that the VP choice was made in preparation for 2024, that Joe Biden will not run, which makes it even less likely that they'll pick a progressive figurehead. With that being said, I don't want to say I'm happy with Kamala, but I think there are worse choices that could have been made. So I will stick with, at least in this situation, I'll be happy that the slightly better choice was made. I will say I would have rather had Kamala as at the top of the ticket than Joe Biden. I think she would have been a superior candidate because a lot of the things that can be run against Joe Biden, he's an old white guy just like Donald Trump, the 94 crime bill, his 40 years in Congress. The argument could be made he's one of the few politicians in America with more skeletons in their closet than Hillary Clinton, at least from a media perspective of, digs that could be made on them, his past with Social Security and whatnot. If Donald Trump comes out and runs to the left of him on a number of these popular issues, I don't want to speak for, I think most progressives will end up understanding that Trump is just doing this to earn votes, but a lot of people who are more completely unaffiliated with politics and just want popular policies in and of themselves might be interested in some of the things Trump has to say if he does choose to take a further left approach than the Biden campaign goes.
And I also think, the bottom line is we are teetering on a depression. So if he does go left in desperation, which I think is very possible, I don't think Trump has a core ideology. His core ideology is Trump. So
it's win. It's whatever helps me.
I think those in the middle, independents, young black people, young Latinos, I think if Trump provides immediate relief, that could play a big part here. The other aspect I'd like to ask you about is, as I said on my live stream, this isn't just a vice presidential pick. They've basically knighted Kamala Harris as the next president. I mean, I don't wish Joe Biden poor health, but there's a 50-50 shot. I'm not talking about physical, but there's a 50-50 shot, Obviously, we've seen some issues cognitively that he might not serve 2 terms. He possibly might not finish 1 term. So this is who they're putting their lot in with. How do progressives, you can't speak for all Bernie people, but, you're a delegate as part of this organized effort for these 800 delegates to vote no on the platform. Where do progressives go from here? Because I think there's a lot of dispirited Bernie voters who they just feel like, this process is rigged. It was rigged in 2016. The media won it for Biden this time. Bernie was on the 5-yard line, and then they stacked the deck against him after South Carolina. All that media, free media Biden got between South Carolina and Super Tuesday.
That's big.
Pete, Amy, Beto, all of them dropping out and getting on stage. Basically it was like a giant super PAC all in 4 days. Where does the Bernie movement go from here? Because Bernie, for his part, I mean, he's
He's not a young man either, right?
No, and he's singing the tune for Biden right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe South Carolina was the first state Joe Biden had ever won in a primary.
Correct.
And this was his third or fourth time running for president.
Correct.
I was born in the early 90s, so those, I wasn't even alive for those, but I'm aware that this existed. I think you need to be able to look back and learn something from history, or you're doomed to repeat the same mistakes of the past. I think that depends entirely on, it's really to the individual Bernie supporters. I know a number of Bernie supporters who really feel that the best course of action is to work within the party, play by the party's rules, kind of beat them at their own game through a populist movement, gathering support from, individual voters. I know a lot of people who think the Democratic Party is not redeemable and that we're going to have to start implementing some sort of legitimate third party. There's a number of them that are, starting to pop up on social media that have gathered some steam. On August 30th, actually, the Movement for a People's Party is having their convention, and they have Senator Nina Turner speaking. They have Dr. Cornel West speaking. There are other alternatives now for young progressives and young left-minded individuals who want to kind of spread away from the Democratic Party, kind of break up from the Democratic Party. I'm of the mindset that, like I said before, expecting people to vote for you simply because you're better than the other option is just not sustainable. Everybody wants to have something that they stand for, that they can support, someone that represents them and their wants, their needs, their ambition. That's kind of what some of these parties are offering as an alternative to the Democrats. I really think that young voters in particular, they want to see a different country than what they've grown up in with the rise of technology and the internet and everything. It's a double-edged sword. There's both a lot more ways to manipulate information, but a lot more ways for true information to be spread. So a lot of people are kind of waking up to the realization that some of these things just don't add up, and they're not happy about it.
And lastly, you're from Wisconsin. I'm looking at the polls. Looks like Biden has an edge in a lot of these Midwest states, but same thing was said in 2016 for Hillary Clinton. Anecdotally, I'm hearing from people they still see a lot more Trump signs, Trump yard signs in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and elsewhere, and not a ton of enthusiasm for Biden. What are you seeing in Wisconsin, and do you have any idea across the Rust Belt if the Rust Belt has turned against Trump?
With Wisconsin in particular, I think it's a hard judge because Joe Biden's a hard candidate to really get excited for. He's not, a young firebrand. He's not someone with these bold, big ideas that even if you don't agree with them, I personally am not a fan of Mayor Pete, but he's young. He can come out and get people riled up with great platitudes and, well-spoken speeches. Joe Biden doesn't really offer that. I have seen a surprising number of Biden signs. I will say that. I also, when you see Trump apparel, you see it in large numbers. So let's say there's one house in a neighborhood that has Trump flags out. They don't just have one sign. They have 5 signs plastered everywhere, 2 flags, a big mega sign in their windows. So I think it kind of can skew the perception of it. It looks like there's a lot more Trump stuff just because one person has a whole bunch of them. If I had to guess, I would say probably I see about 3 Biden signs for every 2 Trump signs. And then you have my house, which has my Bernie Sanders sign and my Black Lives Matter sign. So I'll suck it. At this point, Joe Biden can earn my vote. Like I said before, I might suck it up and vote for him, but I'm not going to go out and push him. I'm not going to do any of the grunt work that I would have done for someone like Senator Bernie Sanders.
Right. Thank you, Walter, one of 800 delegates. William, that voted against the DNC platform today, who unfortunately, I don't think it was a coincidence, the Biden campaign upstaged through picking Kamala Harris, but glad to get out what you guys did through Status Coup. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jordan. You have a good rest of your day.
You too. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.